The scream cut through the quiet suburb like glass shattering in a cathedral. It wasn't loud at first, just a sharp, frightened gasp, but it carried the kind of fear that makes the world stop. 8-year-old Maya Thompson dropped her backpack on the sidewalk, her fingers still sticky from the lollipop she'd saved for the walk home, as a man in a pressed polo shirt stepped out from behind the hedge and blocked her path. He smiled the way adults do when they think rules give them power. "Your mother hasn't paid the fines," he said calmly, flashing a laminated badge with the HOA logo. "You need to come with me." Maya didn't understand fines. She didn't understand why her heart was racing or why the air suddenly felt thin. She understood only that her house was 3 doors away and that her mom always said never to go anywhere with strangers. She took a step back. "I'm not supposed to," she whispered. The man's smile hardened. "It's neighborhood business. Don't make this difficult." In the tidy, sunlit neighborhood of Willow Creek Estates, rules were everything. The lawns were trimmed to identical heights. The mailboxes matched. The paint colors were approved down to the shade. For some residents, the HOA was a shield that kept chaos out. For others, it was a weapon. Earlier that morning, Denise Thompson had stood in her kitchen, coffee growing cold, staring at the latest envelope stamped with the HOA seal. Another notice. Another fine. Improper trash bin placement, it read. $50. Last week it had been, unauthorized chalk drawings on sidewalk. $75. Before that, window coverings not in compliance. Denise had laughed then, a tired sound, because the window coverings were the hand-cut paper snowflakes Maya had taped up in December and forgotten to remove. Denise worked long hours. As a judge, she carried the weight of other people's worst days into her courtroom and tried to leave it there when she came home. She paid her dues. She followed the rules. But lately, the fines had piled up, arbitrary and relentless. She had planned to contest them, to take a morning off and attend the next HOA meeting. She had no idea that someone would decide to escalate the matter in a way that would change everything. Maya walked home from school every day. Denise watched from the window until she turned the corner, then trusted the neighborhood she had chosen, the gates and cameras and polite smiles. That afternoon, when Maya didn't appear at the usual time, Denise checked the clock, then the street, then the phone. 10 minutes late became 20. A tight knot formed in her chest. She called Maya's teacher. "She left on time," the teacher said gently. Denise grabbed her keys. By the time Denise reached the corner, neighbors were gathered in small clusters, whispering. Someone pointed down the street. Denise ran. Maya's backpack lay on the sidewalk, one strap torn. Denise's mind went blank, then flooded with images she pushed away as a judge, images of cases she had sworn to be impartial about. She fell to her knees, clutching the backpack, and screamed her daughter's name. The man who had taken Maya, his name was Carl Benson, sat in his car, jaw tight, convincing himself he was doing the right thing. He was the head of community enforcement, a self-appointed role that made him feel important. He believed the HOA rules were law, and he believed that people like Denise Thompson thought they were above them. He told himself he was escorting the child to the clubhouse, that he would call the mother once she was secured. He ignored the way Maya cried silently in the backseat, hugging her knees, asking over and over to go home. At the clubhouse, Carl ushered Maya into a small office and locked the door. "Sit," he ordered. "Your mother will be contacted." Maya stared at the framed photos of smiling residents and holiday potlucks. She felt very small. Denise's training kicked in as the police arrived. She gave statements. She asked questions. She controlled her voice. Inside, she was unraveling. When an officer mentioned the HOA, Denise's head snapped up. "What do you mean, the HOA?" "They reported a custodial issue," the officer said carefully. "We're checking the clubhouse." Denise was already in her car. The doors to the clubhouse were locked when she arrived. Denise pounded on them, shouting Maya's name. Through the glass, she saw Carl approaching, his face pale now, his confidence cracking. "She's fine," he said through the door. "This is a misunderstanding." "Open the door," Denise said, her voice low and steady in a way that made even Carl uneasy. "You need to settle your fines first," he insisted weakly. Denise laughed then, a sharp, humorless sound. "You have no authority to detain my child. Open the door now." The police arrived moments later. The door was opened. Maya ran into Denise's arms, sobbing, clinging so tightly Denise could barely breathe. Denise held her daughter and rocked, whispering promises she intended to keep. Carl tried to explain himself. He talked about rules and order and community standards. He said the fines were unpaid. He said he was just enforcing policy. Denise stood, Maya still in her arms, and looked at him the way she looked at defendants who mistook arrogance for innocence. "My name is Judge Denise Thompson," she said quietly. "And what you did is kidnapping." The word hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The aftermath rippled through Willow Creek Estates like a storm. News vans lined the street. Neighbors who had nodded politely now avoided eye contact. The HOA board scrambled, issuing statements, suspending Carl, claiming ignorance. Denise took a leave of absence from the bench, focusing on helping Maya heal. Nightmares came. Loud noises made Maya jump. Denise sat by her bed every night, telling stories, rebuilding the sense of safety that had been stolen. In court, Denise returned not as a judge but as a mother seeking justice. The case laid bare a culture of overreach and discrimination that many had felt but few had challenged. Emails surfaced, revealing that Carl had targeted certain families more aggressively. Fines were issued disproportionately. Community standards had been a mask for prejudice. Carl was convicted. The HOA was sued and restructured. Policies were rewritten, oversight imposed. Willow Creek Estates would never be the same. But the true resolution came quieter, slower, in the small moments. Maya learned to walk to school again, holding Denise's hand at first, then alone, then with a friend. Denise planted a garden in their yard, ignoring the approved plant list, letting Maya choose wildflowers in colors that didn't match anything. The chalk drawings returned to the sidewalk, hopscotch squares and suns with smiling faces, and this time, no one erased them. At the next HOA meeting, Denise stood and spoke, not as a judge, but as a neighbor. She talked about fear and power and the line between rules and humanity. She talked about how easily authority can become cruelty when unchecked. "We build communities to protect each other," she said, her voice steady. "Not to terrorize children." Applause filled the room, tentative at first, then strong. On a warm evening months later, Maya rode her bike down the street, laughter trailing behind her like a ribbon. Denise watched from the porch, heart full and vigilant, knowing the world could be dangerous but also believing, fiercely, in the power of standing up. The lesson of Willow Creek Estates spread far beyond its manicured lawns. Rules mean nothing without compassion, authority means nothing without accountability, and a mother's love, anchored in courage and justice, can turn even the darkest violation into a light that guides others home.